This is the brand new ON Cloudrunner 3. It's marketed as a running shoe, but the real question is it really built more for walking than running? And this is the ON Cloudrunner 2. On the surface, they look very similar, but ON have changed more in the Cloudrunner 3 than most people realise. The Cloudrunner has always been one of ON's safest and most predictable shoes, especially for walking, standing all day, and general daily use. The Cloudrunner 2 was comfortable and stable, but let's be honest, it felt quite flat and a bit uninspiring underfoot. With the Cloudrunner 3, ON have changed the drop, the geometry, the cloud shape, the fit, and how the shoe actually transitions when you walk and run. So the big question is, have ON accidentally changed this to one of their best walking shoes? Or have they simply made it a little bit heavier and more complicated than it needs to be? I'm going to discuss the changes between the two shoes, my likes and dislikes, and I'm going to compare it to ON Cloud's most popular walking shoe, the ON Cloudtilt. So let's start with the numbers on the ON Cloud 3. We now have an 8mm drop, so the difference in height from the back to the front of the shoe, compared to the 10mm drop that we saw on the Cloudrunner 2. But it is significantly heavier underfoot, coming in at 311 grams in a size 9 men's US, which is about 34 grams heavier than what we had in the ON Cloudrunner 2. So that's a substantial difference on your feet, especially if you're wearing them for longer periods of time. Now the midsole is still ON's Helium Super Foam, however they've changed the geometry of the shoe and also the directions of the cloud tech. So the foam itself hasn't changed dramatically, it's still quite controlled and firm underfoot, but the change in direction of the pods in the shoe, so you can see they're a little bit more diagonal overall, helps with the transition, especially when you initiate contact with the ground. In the Cloudrunner 2 this was quite stiff and bulky, so when you hit the ground it didn't move smoothly onto the forefoot, whether you're walking or running. In addition to that, they've also made dramatic changes to the bevel. So you can see how we've got a decoupled, so see the split in the heel bevel on the ON Cloudrunner 3 compared to the more flat, less aggressive heel bevel on the ON Cloudrunner 2. That means that when you hit the ground you just roll through onto the forefoot. So those of you who like extra protection on the heel, have any sensitivity there, you just move off it really swiftly and quickly. It's an excellent change. It's got a slightly more aggressive forefoot rocker as well, so therefore when you go to push off it just rocks you forward nicely. And it's coupled up with the fact that it's got an extremely stiff forefoot, so a lot more protection on the foot compared to the flexible forefoot that you got in the Cloudrunner 2. The benefit of the Cloudrunner 2 is you get a lot more of a natural gait pattern. In the Cloudrunner 3, they compensate for that by giving you more of a forefoot rocker to facilitate that normal pattern, but give you lots of protection underneath the ball of your foot. So those of you with sensitivity in terms of hallux rigidus, big toe arthritis, you're going to get lots of protection in that forefoot. On top of the shoe, they've got a brand new engineered mesh, and the fit is so much better than in the Cloudrunner 2. It's nice and snug in the midfoot to give you an excellent lockdown so your foot doesn't move, and it's got a wider toe box and a wider platform underneath the forefoot. That means you've got more space for your toes to splay, but it keeps your foot locked into the shoe. It's got a really stiff heel counter thanks to a heel clip that wraps around the ankle, and this acts by stabilizing your ankle, helping to control it when you initiate contact with the ground. So it is a stability focused shoe, so this heel clip wraps around the ankle, helps to control pronation moments, and the large sidewalls on the inside and the outside of the heel come up, wrap around your foot and try to keep you centered in the shoe as you move. So it's a more modern form of stability within the shoe, though you can feel the inner sidewall a little bit, so those of you who are very sensitive to some form of arch support, you may not enjoy this, but I think for the majority of the population you'll just feel like you've got a really secure fit and lots of stability underneath your foot. So the sidewalls, heel clip and the firm cushioning really make a big difference to how you feel in the shoe. So what do I actually like about the Cloudrunner 3? Well, the fit on top, which is something I always harp on about, is absolutely exceptional. You've got a really snug fit and you've got loads of room in your toes to splay. That was historically an issue that we had with ON, especially when you look at the popular models like the ON Cloud 6, which is too snug in that forefoot. Doesn't facilitate a normal movement of your toes when you walk. They've mastered this, which ON Cloud are typically better at in the more performance shoe by giving you lots of space in the toe box. The second big change that I like is the change in the geometry of the shoe. So it's a much smoother movement from the back to the front of the shoe. In the ON Cloudrunner 2, it was very flat underfoot. It didn't transition nicely from the back to the front because the cushioning isn't very springy or bouncy. So it's quite deceptive. You might think with CloudTech phase technology that it's quite bouncy because of the holes in the shoe, similar to what you might think about with shoes with a bubble in it, but that's not the case with the ON Cloudrunner. It's very flat, very firm underfoot, which helps with the stability of the shoe. So the improved geometry within the Cloudrunner 3 really counteracts this by giving you a smooth motion from the back to the front of the shoe. So if you're walking longer distances, it definitely makes it easier and more enjoyable underfoot. The stiffness in the forefoot is very welcome, and the more aggressive forefoot rocker. That gives you lots of protection to the forefoot, but also facilitates a very normal gait pattern when you're walking or running. The downsides to this shoe is one, it's much heavier, so considerably heavier overall, which I feel is a little bit unnecessary. We still don't have the specific stats on the stack, but it feels a lot higher and a lot more stack under the heel and the midfoot, so I think that's probably one of the main causes of the increase in weight. The other disappointment is, as we discussed, a little bit flat and predictable in the Cloudrunner 2. We anticipated a slightly springier, more bouncier shoe in the Cloudrunner 3. We haven't got that, but as a result of having that predictability in the foot, it adds extra elements of stability. And finally, some of you may have preferred the higher drop that we saw on the Cloudrunner 2. We know that helps to offload the Achilles and therefore reduce the workload placed on it. Brands are now moving towards a lower drop, 6 to 8 mil. This reduces the offload on the Achilles, but we do know that an increased forefoot rocker helps to offload the Achilles as well. So we have some pros and cons in terms of what we're offloading and how we're offloading it. When it comes to running, a little bit disappointed that we don't have a bit more pickup in the shoe. It's a very predictable shoe overall. If you wanted a running shoe to do some easy miles, some steady miles, this is a great option. If you want to do some more up-tempo workouts, well then it's not an ideal option because it's very heavy underfoot and it doesn't have that spring or that pep in it or that responsiveness for you to do those faster workouts. So let's then compare it to On Cloud's most popular shoe and one of my favourite of 2025, the On Cloudtilt. Now first of all, the midsoles, so the feel underfoot are just completely different in the shoes. What you're looking at in the On Cloudtilt is a really soft, really plush cushioning, so when you step into it, it feels really comfortable immediately. When you step into the On Cloudrunner 3, it's much firmer, much more stable immediately underfoot, so you feel like you're really locked into the shoe, whereas you feel like you're getting immediate comfort if you prefer that softer cushioning in the On Cloudtilt. The other thing that I loved about the On Cloudtilt was the speed laces, so I could just slip the shoe on if I was just going to the shops, going downstairs with the bins. Really makes a big difference in terms of convenience. Really enjoyed that. The downside of that, which you don't get in the On Cloudrunner 3, it's harder to do longer distance walks in the shoe because you're not completely locked into it, you don't get that stability, and you get a little bit of heel slippage at the back of the shoe as the result. That's not the case in the On Cloudrunner 3. You are locked in completely in the midfoot and in the forefoot. Then when we think about protecting the forefoot, where we don't get that in the On Cloudtilt, it's very flexible underfoot, and the fit isn't as good as the Cloudrunner 3 either. So you have a little bit more of a tapered fit in the On Cloudtilt. Some people need to opt for a wide version even if they have a normal width foot. Whereas in the On Cloudrunner 3, you've got an exceptionally good fit in the forefoot. It's not on the website yet, but I assume it will come in a wide version because the Cloudrunner 2 did as well. So a better fit overall in the Cloudrunner 3 versus the Cloudtilt. Another big trade-off then is the weight of the two shoes. The On Cloudtilt is significantly lighter, even lighter than what we had in the On Cloudrunner 2, so it feels much lighter on your foot, whereas we've got a much heavier shoe in the On Cloudrunner 3, thanks to all the stability elements and more cushioning underneath your foot. So in terms of their use cases, I think the On Cloudtilt is a better shoe if you want a neutral fit, plush cushioning, and just for shorter distances. I think the max I generally recommend walking in that shoe is up to 5k. Now I've clocked up over 400 miles in the Cloudtilt and I haven't had any issues with it overall, but generally any further than that I don't feel like I'm getting the stability features that I need in the shoe. It's very much a convenient shoe, a little bit more cushioning and protection than we get in the On Cloud 6. In the On Cloudrunner 3, it's very stable. I feel like you can walk up into 10 to 15 kilometers in this shoe without any problems. So if you're looking for a longer distance walking shoe, a shoe for standing in all day that gives you stability and protection, especially in the forefoot, then the On Cloudrunner 3 is an exceptional option. So for me, even though I've clocked up huge amount of miles in the On Cloudtilt, I'll be putting that back on the shelf and I'm going to be wearing the On Cloudrunner 3 as I feel it's now On Cloud's best walking shoe overall. But let me know your thoughts on the two shoes below. Would you pick up the On Cloudrunner 2 now while it's still on sale, or would you opt for the On Cloudrunner 3? I've got links to all three shoes in the description below, and we have a monthly newsletter if you want to check it out that gives you updates on the latest sales and the reviews that we're carrying out, which you can check out in the description below. Otherwise, thank you very much for taking the time to tune in. Liking, sharing, subscribing is always appreciated.